I'm Huon Hooke, and this is The Real Review. So I'm about to taste the 2015 vintage of Henschke's famous Hill of Grace Vineyard Shiraz. Here's the bottle. Beautiful black label, silver on black. The word icon is a word that is much overused in the world of wine. But if there's one wine which it's appropriate for, it would be Henschke Hill of Grace. Truly an icon wine, and a revered wine by just about everybody in the wine business and people who love wine. Not cheap, $865 for one bottle of wine is a lot of money, but we'll come back to that. Eden Valley. It's a single vineyard wine from Eden Valley, and that vineyard's an old vineyard. It was first planted in 1860. The oldest vines in it still date back to 1860, when a chap called Nicholas Stanitsky, who was a distant relative, or an ancestor I guess you'd say, of the Henschke family, planted those first vines. They've been added to since then, but the vines have to be very old to be included in the Hill of Grace. One of the iconic things about this vineyard is the church. There is a beautiful stone Lutheran church that sits at the end of the vineyard, and all of the aerial photographs and even the ground photographs of the vineyard include this church because it is such a beautiful church and it's almost part of the vineyard. The church has another link with the vineyard because it's called Gnadenberg, which is German for Hill of Grace, roughly translated. So that's why they called the vineyard Hill of Grace. The church was there first, I suspect, and the church, I believe, was partly built by some of the early Henschke family. So it's a beautiful place. It has a certain aura about it, this place. If you ever get a chance to have a look, to visit and drive past there, do so. Curious fact is that the vineyard, the old vines in this vineyard were nearly 100 years old when the first Hill of Grace was made. They were about 98 years old in 1958, when Cyril Henschke, who's father of the present winemaker Stephen Henschke, decided to bottle some Hill of Grace wine separately. And from then on, Hill of Grace has been a single vineyard Shiraz wine. He was quite an enlightened winemaker, Cyril Henschke. So let's taste the wine. This is something very special. The first thing you notice is that it's not that dark a colour. It's not that dark. It's got a beautiful hue. It's very bright and it's very youthful. Good purple tinge to it, but it's not impenetrable like a lot of Shirazes from the Barossa. Eden Valley, of course, is higher than the Barossa, so it's much higher than the Barossa floor, which is between less than 100 metres to about 150. So there's quite a difference in altitude, which means a much cooler climate. So those sorts of wines don't have particularly dark colours, and they don't have huge full body like some of the warmer climate wines from the Barossa floor would have. So this is never a big wine, it's always an elegant wine. But the first thing is the nose. Gosh, that nose is just incredible. This is the second time I've tasted this wine, and the thing that hit me about it was how complex and how multifaceted that bouquet is for a young wine. And I guess most wine people think that true complexity comes with age, but not necessarily. Some young wines can have amazing complexity. It's only 5 years old, and when you smell it, you think, crikey, that's so interesting now. Or you could sit and smell it without wanting to taste it. You just smell it and enjoy that. What's it going to be like in another 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years? It's going to be, I hope I live long enough to see it at full maturity, because it's going to be something special. What does it smell like? Well, to me, it's got the hallmarks of Eden Valley Shiraz, which is crushed raspberries, plus all sorts of herbal overtones. Fresh herbs and dried herbs, but mainly dried. There's thyme, there's oregano, there's all sorts of aromatics, a bit of lavender perhaps. It's beautiful. It's got cloves and pepper. It's got a range of spicy aromas. all mixed up together, and depending on how much air it's had or how cold or warm it is, you might smell more or less raspberry, but it's always got raspberry. Not so much the black currants or blackberries or dark plums that you'll get on the Barossa floor. Let's taste it. And just like I was saying, it's not a blockbuster. It's not a powerful, it is powerful. It's not a big wine, not a heavy boned wine. But the intensity of flavour is terrific. The length of flavour is quite formidable. And the texture, the finesse of the wine is really special. Its tannins are very fine. The texture is just glossy. It just glides over your palate beautifully evenly from start to finish, and the aftertaste rolls on and on and on. And again, it delivers this wonderful multiplicity of flavours that we call complexity. Complexity, you taste the wine and you'll get certain flavours. Ask someone else and they'll get different flavours. You ask 10 people and you'll get 10 different versions of what it tastes like. That's what complexity is. I've rated all the recent vintages of Hill of Grace very highly, 98s mainly. This is 99, so that's as high as I go. I don't go to 100. So 99 points, 1 out of 29. So we've tasted 29 Shirazes from Eden Valley from the 15 vintage. It's not a lot because Eden Valley is not a big region, but this rated or ranked number 1. So obviously a high gold ribbon award. And I've said on the app, the drinking window is between 2020 and 2050, which is 30 years hence, but I have no doubt it will live for 50 years if it's well looked after. We did ask the winery if what sort of food that they would recommend with this wine, and they've said more than one option. There's a fillet of beef, or duck, but they stipulate gamey duck, so probably duck that's wild caught. A much more gamey flavour. They've also mentioned venison and kangaroo, so again 2 more gamey types of meat, and they really think that the gamey types of meat go really well with the flavours in this wine. I wouldn't doubt them for 1 minute. Not that the wine tastes gamey, it's just that the spectrum of herbal and spicy flavours go well with those sorts of meats. And I wouldn't sauce them too heavily. Like if you had a reduction sauce, don't make it too powerful, because this is not an enormous wine. It's a wine that wins you over with finesse and subtlety and complexity rather than brute force. It is a beautiful wine indeed. And very privileged to be able to taste it with you today, and I'm going to have another taste. Cheers.